Okay guys, I'm going to try to do a quick video on showing you how to solder if you're completely unaware. It's pretty basic stuff that some people don't really know. The other day I was doing a repair on a blower motor resistor. I may post that video. I was almost done with it, and one of my buddies decided to pull up right next to my garage door and blow the horn and scare the shit out of me, but so the video ended right before I was finished with it, but I still might upload it and put this one as a finisher course, I guess you could say. But anyway, this little tool here is pretty handy for doing the type of repair I did yesterday. It's just a magnetic holder, basically. These little ends are magnetic. They both come off. It all comes apart. It makes it a lot easier to solder stuff together because it holds them in pretty much any position you want. But I'm just using a little piece of steel here to do it on the bench. But hopefully I can get this in the frame here. I should be able to. So basically, what I use is these uninsulated butt connectors because I don't crimp anything or cut any corners when it comes to putting wires together. So I use these uninsulated butt connectors. Just got some regular old wire here, stranded copper wire. I'm not sure what gauge it is. It's actually fairly heavy for what I'm doing here now. But anyway, I strip off a little bit on the end. Doesn't take a whole lot with the butt connectors. Might be just a bit too much. That's what I've got. I guess we'll just loop it. Just use another piece. This is scrap wire anyway. It's left over from the resistor repair. A little bit more on that one. Now what I'm going to do, I wouldn't normally recommend, I don't ever recommend this, but since this wire is just slightly too big for my butt connector, when I twist them together and try to push it in there, a couple fray back anyway. So I'm just going to cut a few of them off. Not very many at all, but I want it to all go in there and look neat and tidy, so I just trim a few off like that, and they just flew everywhere. Twist them together. See if it fits your butt connector. Yep, fits perfect. Take it back out, dip it in flux. Don't have to use flux if you don't have any, because most of the solder anymore is flux cord. It just makes it a lot easier and faster if it is fluxed. So you take the fluxed wire, put it back in the butt connector, wipe off any excess, and you end up with something like that. Now, hopefully you can see it in the camera. When I put solder into this, there's a little hole right there in the butt connector itself, right in the middle of it, and I think you can see it. That's where I put the solder in through. So, take that, clamp it right there. See if we can zoom in a little bit. That'll work. Now, I'll get the other one ready, kind of off camera here. You saw me do the first one pretty much, so stuff with stripping wires is really pretty simple. Make sure it fits. It's going to. One little piece pushed back. Dip it in the flux. Turn that down and around for now. Stick it in there like so. Bring your holder down. And I will turn, you can turn the butt connector on the wires. I turn it so that little hole I showed you is facing up. Just like that. Now, before you would actually solder these together or put the last piece of wire in, normally you would have to put the shrink tubing on the wire, but since I'm doing it off the car on the bench, the other end of the wire's, cut, so you can just slide it on from that end as a demonstration. But normally you have to put it on, or you wouldn't be able to put it on once it's soldered. So make sure that's pushed together good, which it is. Turn it around. Get your soldering iron, clean the tip, and I use the Weller, let's see, I think it's the model TC201T. Pretty much any of the Weller brand soldering irons are going to be good. The key to getting a good solder joint for this kind of stuff, and get it in the camera here, is this tip. A big fat tip so it can dump the heat output really fast. The tip that came with it is a smaller one, pointier one, like that, which it works pretty good too, but having the bigger tip really helps to dump the heat fast, get the job done, and get out of there so you don't have too much heat building up and melting the insulation back and just making for a bad looking repair. So, like I was saying, clean the tip, put just a dab of solder on the tip, get some extra solder unrolled, and you want to apply the heat to the part and then let the part melt the solder. Touch the bottom, you'll hear the flux sizzling. Get the solder in the hole and just keep on pushing her in. And maybe a little bit on the end to be sure. Suck the solder right in. Let it cool for a second. Sometimes I will actually take a little bit of brake clean, non-flammable preferably, but it's not a huge deal if it's not. Put some on a rag. Dab the solder joint, gets the flux residue off of there, takes the slime off of it. It also helps cool it down faster. And still a little warm. Take it out of your holder. And if I can get it to focus. Let's try this. And you can pull on it and it's not coming apart, so you know you got it soldered good, but you can see there's not solder pouring out of the ends or anything crazy. No wire fraying out. So after you get that part done, take your shrink tubing, get a rough idea of how long it needs to be. Slide it on the end. About like that. Take your lighter or some kind of heat source. A heat gun works better because there's no open flame. Hopefully this works with a fan blowing on me. And I have to turn the fan off. You know what? Since I have one, I'm just going to use it. I'm going to have to move the camera stand. Got one of these little butane powered solder. It's Solder Pros. You can use it as a little torch like that. They have soldering tips for them. It's like a portable soldering iron. They also make this, which is just just a heat gun, basically, a somewhat low power heat gun. Puts out a lot of heat, but just in a really small area. You can see it. I think you can see on camera. It glows red down in there. It puts out a good bit of heat. Bring this back in. I don't know if you better see this shrinking up on camera or not. It's already fairly small compared to the wire size. Just kind of turn the wire slowly and work your way around it. And ideally, you want to see the contour of what's under it. That way you know it's shrunk up tight and isn't going to move on you. Seals out any moisture and anything you don't want in there. And that's it. That's all there is to a proper wire repair. As far as crimping goes, you shouldn't crimp anything. I don't even know why they make crimps, I guess for quick, simple field repairs maybe, but if you're in your garage, at home, whatever, you've got the time, do it right. Do it this way. I mean, you pull on that, it ain't coming apart. So, that's how you do a solder repair. I highly recommend one of these two. That makes it a lot easier if you're working in a tight spot on a vehicle or something that you can't hold those little butt connectors. I will say, as a matter of fact, before I end this video, let me show you one other thing. If you don't want to use those butt connectors, another alternative is to twisting them together and soldering them. However, you generally need bigger shrink tubing, and it makes for a fatter joint, but it really doesn't always matter. Sometimes I twist them. It's just as good of a connection. But you twist the wires together so they don't fray all over the place. Just end up with two wires like that. Now, some people, let me think of how they do it. Yeah, some people might just put them together like that and twist, and then you have like a V-shaped connection. I put them at an angle about like that, and then twist like that. It's a little bit tougher with heavier gauge wire like this, but it still works. That way your wire is still straight, and they're also still together. And just to show you that you can solder them just as easily. Guess I only really need the one holding that. I'll use a piece of wire for some flux. Put a little bit on there. Helps pre-clean it when the heat hits it. Plus it makes the solder flow so much better. And clean your tip. A little dab of solder. I should have slightly heavier solder for this since it's heavier gauge. It just takes a little longer to pour it in there, but heat the wire. And melt the solder right on in. Definitely should have heavier solder. Take it out of the clamp. Gotta cool it with some brake clean. Clean it, cool it. And there you go. Another perfectly fine solder joint. Kind of hard to see on my white hand. I don't know if that'll help. A little bit. You can see how it turns silver. It's soldered. And again, the insulation might pull off, but it ain't coming apart either. It's just as strong. So, possibly even stronger than the other method, but neither one's going to come apart in regular use. So, That's another method, but like I said, you do need slightly bigger shrink wrap, so this probably won't go over it. Yeah, you can force it over it. Just like that. I don't like this shrink tubing anyway, so I'm just going to waste it on this. And that's that. See how it shrunk up, and you can see the wire shape underneath it, the spiral shape there. That's what you want, and you know it shrunk up tight. It ain't moving. So, two different methods. Both. Boy, it's tricky doing this on camera. Everything's backwards. Yeah, two different methods. Both are very effective.